Hi, welcome to Church for Business People. Good evening, wherever you are across the world, whatever city, whatever neighborhood, whatever country you're watching from. I just want to give a very special welcome to you and an extremely special welcome to all the members of our business community, all those kingdom business leaders who are part of our business community. Big shout out to you this evening. It's really great to see you this evening, and I can't wait to just have a great interaction, conversation. My name is Pastor M. Muredi Wanjawa, Senior Pastor of Mavuno Church, but also passionate about kingdom business. So let us know where you're checking in from. Give us a comment throughout this. The comment that comment line is your friend, so use it. Tell us what you think. Tell us who you are, where you're checking in from. Tell us any ideas you have on how we can make this better work for you. This broadcast is actually for anybody who's passionate about doing business God's way. And this is our 13th episode. And so we've been going for the last few months now, and God's just been so gracious. We're really talking about how to rebuild with wisdom. What is the nature of a kingdom business? That's what our theme is. And so I'm glad you're here tonight. We're going to start with worship like we normally do, and then we're just going to get right into understanding what God has for our business. So let's have a time of just coming before our King.
Generations and your family and your children and their children and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations and your family and your children and their children and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations and your family and your children. Within you, He is with you. May His presence go May His favor rest on your family. May His favor be on you. Be upon you now, 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 now. Say amen. 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 Say amen. Amen.
Oh, wow. What a great time of worship. Thank you so much, my friend and my partner Kanji, for leading us before the throne of God. God is in the house. And we're His people. We want to learn about His business. If you're just joining us, this is Church for Business People. It's a space for people who are passionate about doing business God's way. So check in. Let us know where you're checking in from. If you are not part of our WhatsApp business community, then you are missing out. Let me just tell you that. So right under the link, this broadcast, you'll actually see there in the comment section, there's a pinned comment, and it tells you just click on that link and you'll be able to join our WhatsApp community. Follow the instructions and you'll be a member of our WhatsApp community. We've been doing some fantastic things the last couple of months. We've got a trading platform already going for that community. We have some other fun things we're doing as well together. So if you're interested in just being part of a community of passionate kingdom business entrepreneurs, people who are passionate about doing business God's way, then click on that link and join us. So I just want to start with part 2 of an interview. We're going to be talking about really the distinctives of a kingdom business. That's what we're really talking about. That's a series we're in the middle of, and we've been talking about the 4 P's. The 4 distinctives. What are the 4 things that make your business stand out as a kingdom entrepreneur? But before we jump into that, I want us to conclude an interview, because we always have this segment. We've been doing this segment where we interview a kingdom entrepreneur, somebody who is either teaching others or passionate about teaching others, or even just doing it themselves, changing the business sector by doing business God's way. So I want us to do part 2 of an interview that we began with Evans Mwangi, who is in the business of branding and just teaching us some interesting things about selling, how to sell your business. So let's check into this part 2. Well, welcome again to part 2 of this interview. We started a great interview last week with Evans Mwangi, CEO of Brand Partners 2.0, and he is an incredible guy. He's one of the best salespeople around, trains people. I know that's one of the things your company does, is you train people on how to sell, and even they're helping their company culture become open to sales, because you could be trying to sell something, but your whole company culture does not support your ability to sell that same product. In your experience, Evans, if we just jump right into the deep end, what are the biggest challenges facing entrepreneurs in this season? People, as we're just in the product, we've got our products, we've got our services. What's happening in the world right now that's really affecting us as entrepreneurs?
Well, I mean, COVID is real. It has come, it has forced us to stay at home, it's forced us to wash our hands more times than we ever thought we could. It's forced us to wear masks when out in the public. But when it comes to business and spending money, whether at an individual level or at a business level, it's forced us to look and scrutinize every shilling, every coin. And so entrepreneurs are facing the harsh reality that people will not just buy because you're selling. Now, if what you're selling cannot add value to them, if there are no guarantees that what you're offering them will have immediate returns, or it's going to basically deliver what they need right now, then chances are they're going to say no. And they may be saying a total no, or they may be saying, see you in 6 months.
What you're saying is basically there's a high efficiency now. I mean, usually people are careful with money, but now it's like if you're not bringing 100% top dollar value to that person, they're going to say no to your product.
They're going to say no. I mean, I think twice before I buy any item. When I walk into a supermarket, I'm not shopping based on brand. I'm shopping based on price. Because the more money that I retain, the better, because I don't know when will I make money again?
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do then? You're an entrepreneur. You've developed your product. You've developed your service.
So you need to
I get
keep
a good
getting
example, like
you
say
need to ask yourself
in
when
the
can I?
hotel industry now, everybody is doing Zoom conferences. So what do I
Yes.
do? I mean, how do I survive?
Yeah. You see, I mean, the reality is that there are particular types of businesses which will take a very long time to recover, even after things are back to quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what the new normal is going to be, or what is going to be, if there's going to be anything we call normal again. So hospitality is a major industry in that sense. Many hotels in this country have been surviving on conferencing.
Yeah.
I know a particular hotel in Naivasha where they basically just put up, I think they launched either in 2019 or 2018 with the largest conference facility in Naivasha town. And so you can imagine that you are investing for conferencing, yet now conferences are on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Conferences are online.
What
So
do I do?
the
How do I
question,
survive?
what do I do? I mean, the conference facility may not be utilized the way you had hoped. But do you know how stressed we are at home, being locked up? That our kids have been at home for months now, for over 3 months, without being able to leave the house. We've not been able to take them to anywhere for entertainment.
Yes.
Easter came and went, and we didn't go on holiday. So why don't you look at the product that you have and look at repackaging it for this season?
Yeah.
Because we need a break. We will need a break as soon as we can travel. But will we come to your establishment?
So what you're saying, because a lot of people are thinking, I need to get out of this business. It's a dying business. I need to go to a new business. What you're saying is before you jump out, first of all, check back into what value you are giving and see how you can reposition what you already have.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah.
Reposition what you have so that at the end of the day, if there is value that you can give me with the product that you are offering, that value proposition is what you should now start pushing.
Yeah.
Not pushing that which is no longer makes sense to me,
relevant to you. So the product may not be your problem. That school you're running may not be the problem. It's still needed, but the point is how you sell it now, because you have to connect it with where the people's needs are. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
In fact, you've just mentioned a school, and there's an amazing school in Nakuru which I visited. I've been after hearing about it, and they've been featured online. And for them, what they did when COVID happened, they had been investing in their IT infrastructure. When COVID happened, they did not just launch their e-learning programs for the COVID season, but they basically said, this for us is long-term strategy. And so we want a Kenyan who's in Ghana, who wants their kids to get a Kenyan education. We want them to be able to register their kids into this school, and their kids can learn online alongside their Kenyan peers who will be right here, who may be able to go back to school when schools reopen.
Yep.
So for them, they are looking at this thing. They're not looking at COVID as being the devil, but they're looking at COVID as having given them a new opportunity to basically completely rethink their business and their and their offering.
Yeah. So within the crisis is an opportunity. If you could just rethink through the needs of your customer, rethink through how your product can actually add value to them, you can actually reposition and find greater opportunity than what you had before.
A lot more than you thought. Yeah.
Now, one other sales question that I get all the time. I mean, maybe you're the guy who was top salesman in your first year at Britam. Many guys are, I'm shy, I'm an introvert. This whole story of selling feels like being a hawker. Just going in front of people, getting doors slammed in my faces. What do you tell somebody like that? Do I have to change my personality? Do you have a school where you train guys on how to face rejection? What do you do? That's a place.
So let's begin with the fact that everyone is a salesperson. If you have ever been employed, if you've ever offered a service, whether it's a technical skill that you have, when you went and convinced that employer to employ you, or when you convince that person that you could actually deliver that service to them, you are selling. So all of us are salespeople. I mean, we even sell when we are dating, and courting our girlfriends to marry them. Yeah, you're trying to convince her that you're the best man on earth.
Yeah.
So you're basically, we are all salespeople, and so we need to stop looking at sales as that thing for those people out there. We need to realize that it affects all of us. Yeah, it affects all of us irrespective of our career path or our training. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you mentioned hawkers, and let me talk about hawkers a little bit, because those are guys that I really admire. Hawkers do something called hard selling.
Mm-hmm.
They do not know you. They do not know whether you need the product. They are convinced that what they are selling is the best, irrespective of whether it's like a cheap product from China, but they are convinced it's the best, and they are convinced that you need it. And so what they do is basically they come to your car window and they shove it on your face and they want you to buy it. And they want to buy it. And you tell them no, you shake your head, you look away, and they go to the next car and the next car and the next car. How many people do you think reject that guy? And at the end of the day, they go home with money.
He still makes a living.
Yeah, they still make a living.
Yeah.
So for them, they have learned to look beyond the rejection. They have basically realized that guy with the big 4x4, what I am selling would have costed nothing. It's really loose change. But they said no, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's not me they said no to. It is the product that they don't want. So I'm going to offer this same product to the next person. Now, that is somebody who's doing hard selling, facing rejection. Probably 100 cars will reject him in a day, but at the end of the day, they will still sell and go home with money.
Wow. Now,
in this day and age, that is not the only choice you have as a salesperson or as a professional. Hard selling is not your only choice. So we now need to move away from the thinking that all sales has to be hard sales. How about sales where you become an authority in your field, where you begin to use that digital platform that you have to position yourself as an authority in your specialty, in your area of specialization? Whether you're a doctor, an accountant, guys were just doing their KRA returns recently, but KRA sent us reminders, but who showed us, who bothered, which accountant even bothered to use their social media platforms to show us how to do those things, that we can actually do them ourselves. So there is an opportunity for you, irrespective of your training, your field, to become an authority in your space. And when you become you become the authority in your subject matter. When that happens, then you don't have to go out there and do hard selling, because you have positioned yourself as an authority. So we will come looking for you.
Wow. Yeah. And all of us in this day and age, every one of us has a platform. We all have access to. In fact, the amazing thing is we have access to billions of people through social media.
Billions of people.
And so really the opportunity has never been greater. And I love if you combine those two things, being a subject matter expert and being the person who can sell to, even if I'm selling to 1 million people and only one says yes. There's 7 billion in the world. I'll still be a millionaire with the ones who say yes.
Exactly. It's amazing that the problem is that the story is told of success stories are told from the point of when the success happened, but not before the success. And that's what I was driving at. That a salesman, a hawker walks from car to car to car to car, being told no. Then one person says yes. That person maybe spends 100 shillings. Then they go to another one who, they face another maybe 20 rejections. Then somebody says yes and spends 1,000. At the end of the day, they go home with some money. So when you are using social media allows you to target first and foremost. Today, if you just invest on Google is your friend, as a friend of mine likes to say. So if you just invest in understanding how these social media platforms work, then you will understand that you can actually target your messaging to a particular audience. And when you do that, then you can speak to them as an authority in your subject matter. Now, if out of a million people, 10%, you moved from a million, you came down to 100,000, and out from 100,000 people purchased offering. Even if you're selling it for, I don't know, 100 shillings, you've made money.
Yeah. I love that.
To basically, it's to basically to learn how to become authorities in our space.
Wow. So I love those tips.
And forget about hard.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I love those tips. Become the subject matter expert. Use the power of the internet. Leverage that. And understand that when people reject your product, it's not you they're rejecting. It's a product, and that is an opportunity for further conversations. These are golden tips. Huh? I love that already. Let me ask you a couple of the last thing I just want to ask you is, number one, a book recommendation, because there's somebody here who's just like, I just need some people learn by reading. I know I do. And so just a book recommendation that you could give to somebody who is like, I need to immerse myself. And then number two is how we can connect with you, because somebody may want to come to you and get some further training on this issue. So,
okay. Yeah. So I'm going to recommend, allow me to recommend two books. One is by Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is known as a sales guru. And the book that I would recommend, it does not have a sales title. It's actually called Eat That Frog. And basically, the short and long of it is that eating a frog is not easy. Frogs are not necessarily pretty. So what Brian Tracy says is that when you look at the things that you need to do to drive sales, there is that thing that you hate doing, that thing which you don't like doing, which you will procrastinate over and over again. That is what you need to start with. If it is making those phone calls, sales phone calls, start with those sales phone calls. Don't just get into writing emails because there is no engagement on email or there's no one-to-one interactions. Eat that ugly frog first.
Start with the frog. Yeah.
Start with the frog. Eat that frog. That's the first book I would recommend.
Yeah.
The second one is an interesting book by a guy called Grant Cardone. And Grant Cardone is a sales, he positions himself as a sales guru, sales trainer, etc. And he's got a book that is titled Sell or Be Sold. Now, by the title itself, I think you understand what the message is. You are a business person with a product. You either sell that product or your business will be sold.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for those. Those are fantastic. Hey, if you're a reader, please grab one of those titles, at least start. I think one of the things we said at some point is leaders must be readers. And so I love that. Okay, how do somebody connect with you if they want to just get further instruction, or even maybe get involved in one of your seminars when you're training people, or just maybe get you to consult for their business right now with what they're selling?
Well, thanks for that. I think for us, it's very easy. Brand Partners 2.0 on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. That is where you will find me. We have our content up there, a lot of content on brand management.
Nice.
We also, if you are to log in there and just send us a message, we're pretty efficient in responding to those. And then once you do that, then I'm happy to do sales trainings. I'm happy to do organizational culture trainings because those are areas that I'm passionate about.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Evans. This has been amazing. And I know that has added value to countless entrepreneurs who are going to be watching this, Kingdom Entrepreneurs. So thank you and God bless you.
Blessings. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Smoking. Amazing. Fire. Thank you, Evans. I know, Evans, you're watching this broadcast this evening and you have been such an inspiration. I know that you actually did do a class on sales, and actually my wife is the one who really strongly spoke highly about that class. Really learned a lot of amazing things. You're a natural born salesman, but every one of us can learn to sell, and that's really how do you have a business if you can't sell? And so thank you so much for teaching us those things. I hope you've learned some practical business skills from that segment. Well, we want to just jump into the 4 distinctives of a kingdom business, the 4 P's. That's what we've been talking about. And if you've been following us, then you know we've talked about the first 2 P's. The first one is purpose. The key question there is, how is my business representing God's agenda? If your business is a kingdom business, then it has to be representing God's agenda. And there's several things we talked about that show that your business is connected with the kingdom of the business of the kingdom. And then number 2, people. So if it's purpose, the second is people. And the key question is, who apart from myself is my business blessing? Because your business wasn't meant to just bless you. That's a very small part. You are blessed to be a blessing. And so we talked about some of the stakeholders in your business who must be blessed, who must be thanking God because of your business. Those are some of the things that when somebody walks into your business, they look around and they say, this is a kingdom business. Now today, we want to look at the third P. And the third P is planet. So purpose, people, planet. And I want us to just start by diving right into Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. I've got it here on my online Bible. Genesis 1:28. And it says, and this is just after God created the first humans, the first human beings. And it says here that God blessed them and said to them, Genesis 1:28, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves along the ground. You know, one of the things, by the way, this must be one of the verses of, if you talk about verses that pastors quote the most, this must be one of the ones I've quoted the most of any other scripture in the Bible. And you know, I just to bring context, last week I said that one thing about your purpose is that your purpose is always about others. It's never about you. It's always about others. So that's one thing I said last week. But this week I want to add and say that one thing about your purpose, it's always about leaving the world a better place. That's, if you want to know that it's God's purpose for you, your God-given purpose, it will always leave the world a better place. That's part of what it means to be blessed, to be a blessing. And that comes from the fact that God created us as human beings in his image, but then he gave us rulership over his creation. He says, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over everything that moves along this planet called Earth. And you know, the interesting thing is, he's given us rulership. But notice what rulership is. Psalm 24 verse 1 gives context into what rulership is, because it tells us that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. In other words, God did not give us ownership. He gave us rulership. He still owns it. The earth, the planet is his, but he's given us rulership, which is really management or stewardship over this thing. The world doesn't belong to us. We are owners. We are managers, not owners. I think that's a very important thing to understand when it comes to this third P called planet. You know, if we look at the second chapter of Genesis, the one right after that, you're going to find a very interesting thing, the power, the very essential role of managers. When God created humans and he gave them this role of managers. Genesis 2:5 says something very profound. It says, now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, for the Lord had not yet sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. So what's happening here? It's saying that before God could send shrubs, before God could send trees or plants or anything else, he couldn't do that before he conceptualized who would look after it. In other words, the manager was essential. It was increasingly important. It was so important for God to first figure out who's going to manage all this. Before I create it, I need to figure out the manager. And so because of that, no shrub had appeared until God figured out who the manager is. God would not create the world until he had figured out who to put in place to look after it. And that is me and you. As kingdom entrepreneurs, we must be conscious of this essential role that we have on earth, that we are placed as managers on the earth on God's behalf. And that is an essential role for our business. You know, all around us, if you're honest, we're going to see many signs of mismanagement over God's creation. There's so many signs of mismanagement. I'll give you just a few examples. If you live in this country, you're going to see so many in the media. Right now, in fact, let me give you 5. Number 1, forests. There's a huge furore. There's a major scandal going on right now because the minister for lands, the cabinet secretary for lands, has been in the news trying to reclaim grabbed forest. Langata Forest, one great example. Originally 7,200 acres. Today it's less. It's about 1,200 acres. 6,000 acres grabbed. People misallocating it. Wealthy individuals, people actually in power, the ones who are supposed to be stewarding on behalf of others, allocating it to themselves and their beneficiaries. And as a result, then there's a whole space where this, by the way, I grew up next to that forest, Langata Forest. And I remember as a child, just the joy of growing up next to a forest. We could walk in that place. It was lush, it was green, there were many trees. It was a lung for our city. Today, when you drive there, you just find mountains of apartments. Instead of trees, you find apartment blocks. And it's horrible. Over the last 3 decades, we're told that the country's forest area has halved to maybe less than 7%. 7% is critical. Our country is in a critical place because of destroying our forests. And so that's number one, forest. Number two is rivers. And I think this one, if you live in Kenya, then you know exactly what I'm talking about even before I go there. I remember going as a young child to the yacht club, the sailing club at Nairobi Dam, what is called Nairobi Dam, and was called then. Today, if you went there, you would wonder why it's called that, because there's no sign of water, there's no dam. It's basically this toxic patch of hyacinth that is just surrounded by large housing estates on one side and then a large slum called Kibera on the other side. And when it rains, there's a strange foam, a white foam that oozes out of that place because of all the toxic emissions, all the sewer that has been dumped into what we used to call Nairobi Dam. It's basically an environmental disaster waiting to happen or already happening. This is not just true for Nairobi Dam, it's true for many of our rivers. Nairobi River, toxic sludge, Athi River, many of the rivers that come into the capital city. This place that was actually known as the place of cool waters. That's what Nairobi means. Just a place of cool waters in the original Ma language. And now what is it? It's a place of toxic water. It's a place where people are suffering because of all this. Did you know that many of the vegetables that are sold in our markets are grown on the banks of rivers that are full of toxicity in this city? That's one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm on a campaign to help to say that every person who comes to Mavuno, every believer should have a patch of their own greens. They're growing their own food on the side, because right now we're poisoning ourselves by buying the stuff that is out there in the market. So that's number two, our rivers. Number three, very related, is our food. Scandal after scandal in the media. If you've grown up in Kenya, then you know what I'm talking about. Maybe if you're watching from a different country, maybe you have different issues there. But for us, it's aflatoxin-infected maize, mercury-infected sugar, formaldehyde-preserved meat, adulterated honey. I mean, you name it and it's there. There's just scandal after scandal of people taking shortcuts to make money at the expense of the health of others. And so food, again, is a major area where we see the mismanagement of the environment. Number four is water. Again, if you live in Nairobi, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. An area called South Sea, which has been in the news recently because our new city management was trying to resolve the perennial water shortages there. And when they dug into the pipes to find out why water doesn't flow, they found out mattresses were stuffed in those pipes years ago. Why? It doesn't matter how much water the city pumps into the estates. No water gets to the residents. Why? Because a cartel has managed to block the water pipes so that they can sell water at inflated prices to the residents of those estates. And this is going on in broad daylight. I mean, people know about this in City Hall. And the result is that people are buying water at highly inflated prices, the water that was supposed to be coming to their taps in the first place. This is just scandalous. I mean, the abuse of our environment and the abuse of the place, the planet that God gave us. Number four is air quality. My goodness, I mean, I watched a good piece of investigative journalism by Citizen TV just a little while back, just over a week ago. And they were talking about a factory in an area called Syokimau, which has polluted the area for years. I mean, it's a steel factory. They even named the factory. The residents have complained to the environmental regulator for years. They've pretended, when the regulator came and gave them the kind of standards they should meet, they pretended to comply, but what they basically did is they started producing at night. Let me just say this, having lived in Athi River, they're not the only ones who do this. Many of the factories in Athi River, I have to say this, they are actually guilty of this, that they will pretend to be complying with the environmental authorities who come to inspect during the day. But at night is when their factories are on and they're pumping toxic fumes into the environment. Why? Because of greed, obviously. But as a result, people are dying from infections. There's a little girl in that documentary, so sad. It's called We Can't Breathe, really aptly named. Just check it out on the internet. And a little girl who died because of lung failure. And her father is one of those campaigners who's saying something must happen. This guy is still, by the way, even till now, The government has not yet ruled that that company should close. And they're still, they interviewed a director who is protesting and saying, come and inspect our factory, we're doing the right thing. But the journalist had actually been there a few nights before and recorded the toxic fumes going up in the middle of the night. I want to say to the residents of Syokimau, anybody who is listening to this broadcast, we must arise. We must do something. It's our children's future that is at stake. And it's all because of this greed, our air quality, the pollution that is happening in those places, killing people in broad daylight and night as well. Now, these are just a few examples of what happens when human beings mismanage their planet. And the results of this mismanagement are catastrophic. Right now, our nation is going through the plagues. It almost feels like the Egyptian plagues in the Bible. I mean, it started with floods, and then it went to locusts, and then after that, now it's COVID. And I mean, it's like the Lake Victoria is surging. I mean, if you've read about the lake surging, 350 meters. The lake has moved its boundaries. People have been displaced from their homes. People can no longer access their property. When did you ever see rains in July? This is all, it's been called climate change, but it's actually happening. Climate change isn't happening by itself. It's human change on the climate. It's actually humans abusing the world, the earth, that is causing this. And as a result, we've got water shortages. We've got cancer epidemic. Right now, there's a huge epidemic of cancer. Nobody's talking about it, but it's happening in our nation. Why? Because of all the toxic stuff that people are consuming. There's an increase in respiratory illnesses. They're killing children all over the country, and so on and so forth. And these plagues affect us whether rich or poor. But I will say this, ultimately the poor pay the greatest price for this mismanagement of the environment. And what is the root cause of all this environmental crisis? I'm bringing it now close to where we are as kingdom entrepreneurs. Let me give you a simple answer: ungodly business principles. Absolutely. It's unscrupulous real estate developers who are grabbing and excising our forests. It's uncaring factory owners who are bribing government workers to turn the other way so they can operate outside the acceptable norms and standards. It's greedy farming enterprises that are taking shortcuts to farm with polluted water. They know it. And by the way, this is the truth. They're actually wealthy individuals who own big farms that are supplying some of our elite chains. And you're buying vegetables there very unsuspectingly, not understanding that these guys who have the power to sink boreholes, to actually get clean water, why would they waste that money? They're getting the water directly from the polluted streams to sell it to you and to certify it as good produce for all. It's all corruption, it's greed. This is what's happening. Greedy government employees who are colluding to issue permits to businesses and licenses to businesses and turning the other eye to their abuses. Broken business practices are what are destroying this planet. And why is this relevant then to me as a kingdom entrepreneur? Somebody might even be thinking, I'm just a small guy. I'm not one of those rich billionaires who's killing everybody else. Why would I even think about this when I'm just busy trying to make a living? I'll say a few things real quick. Number one, because it's your calling. If you're a believer, if you're a follower of Jesus, if you know God as your Father, then the God of heaven wants you to understand that this is your mandate. This is your mandate as a manager over his planet. You have no choice. This is why you are created, to look after. God would not create it until you are created. This is why you are created, to look after the planet. But number two, it's to your benefit. If you have to play your part in leaving this planet a better place. If you don't stand up, if you don't do something about it, then it's your children who will die. It's your children who will suffer. What are you making the money for if your children won't enjoy it because they'll be so sick that they can't enjoy it? Look at all these, it's been so interesting with this COVID time, all these rich guys who had the option of flying their children out of the country and go to nice hospitals abroad. Now you can't. Why? Because we can't fly, because the environment's a mess. This is what happens. It's going to catch up with you. So it's to your benefit to be involved. But number three, it does make business sense. It makes business sense. Why do I say this? I believe that environmentally conscious businesses, that they stand to make a lot more money because our population is waking up. People are becoming woke. People are beginning to understand the impact of the environment on their health. And now people are beginning to understand why they need to be involved in understanding where their products come from. Shortcuts will make you money. They may make you money, but it's not sustainable. I think it's going to catch up with you, and it's going to catch up with you hard. It may be more work to start with being conscious about the environment with your products, with your process, with your people, whatever it is. But you know what? eventually it'll pay you to become environmentally conscious. I've found this to be true when I do business, that actually customers will reward businesses that care for the environment. The key question when it comes to your business and the planet is, how is my business leaving the world a better place? Every kingdom entrepreneur must ask themselves that. Every business that calls itself a kingdom business must, has no choice but to be invested in leaving the world a better place. Now, just because of time, I'll give a few thoughts on ways you can begin to have an impact on the planet as a kingdom entrepreneur. Just a few. I know there are others that maybe you can come up with, but I just want to throw out some things. I'm hoping this helps us start thinking. I know this is one of the areas we don't talk about much as Christians, yet we must be involved in leading the way when it comes to protecting the environment as businesses. The first is become aware. Wake up, become aware. You know, we must become aware of the environmental issues around us, both at home and at work. And also become aware of your role, that you are a custodian, you are a manager. That when you, by the way, when you employ someone as a manager and I walk into the business, I expect to see them managing. I don't expect them to tell me, oh, I don't know what this guy is doing. Oh, it's this person's fault. Oh, I left this person in charge. I don't know what they did. I'll fire you as a manager. And I suspect that our God in heaven is walking around and thinking, where are my managers? Who are the people I put in charge? In the estate where you live, what are the issues? Become aware of them. In your workplace, become aware of those environmental issues. Become a caretaker. When you see a problem, don't ignore it, engage it. We must all become environmental activists. We don't have a choice because it's why we were created. If you believe the Bible, then you understand that this is your role. I recently, there's a piece of land that I bought some years back next to a beautiful river. In this brook with just bubbling with fresh water. And over the years, a settlement upstream came up, and then people just began to, and then homes also. People, you know how people with shortcuts, some people directed their seaway into the stream, people started dumping in the stream. Today it's a polluted stream, just filth flowing by my property. And I've just been praying about it because I just feel, no, I have to do something about it. And I'm still trying to figure out what it is. I've talked to a few of my friends who are involved in environmental concerns, and I'm getting some good advice, by the way. If you've got some good thoughts for me, I'd love to hear them as well. But I am committed because I know that I'm a steward. I'm committed that I will help the community clean up that stream. It's probably going to take years. It's going to be, I don't know, but with God's help, nothing's impossible, right? So I know it's my role. I'm aware it's my role, and I'm praying about God giving me the ideas, the thoughts on what to do about it because it's my environment. It's my land, but more than that, I am supposed to take care of it on God's behalf and to help the community. I know that there are solutions that will help the community look after the environment. So we must become aware. Number 2, say no to shortcuts. Choose to only do business in a way that leaves the world a better place. If there are any shortcuts that will help you move faster, but they don't actually help the environment, they don't actually help the planet, say no to them. I was fencing a piece of land recently, and having a conversation with a guy who has a lumberyard. I'd been introduced by a friend, and I told him I need some poles, and he told me cedar poles are great because they don't get eaten up by termites. And I was, of course, I'm all about that. I don't want to buy a fence that will be falling over in 2 years. And so I made an order. And I think I ordered quite a bunch, and he was selling them at 500 shillings, which powerful cost. I mean, I think they go for about from 350, 400 to 500 to about 700 shillings. They're in that range. So I said I'll buy some. I even paid a little deposit to reserve mine. I even paid a guy to go and actually choose the ones that I wanted, and so they were all selected. When we started talking about delivery with the guy, he got a bit shifty, and he started talking about delivering on Sunday and making sure there are no police around and actually painting them so that you can't tell they're cedar poles. And so I got suspicious, and I went online to find out why he's being so shifty. And I realized cedar poles are actually legal. They're banned by the government. And why are they banned? It's because they're probably coming from the Mau forest. They're coming from Kakamega forest. They're coming from all these endangered forests. And I thought, oh my God, this is why, I mean, it's such a, people will tell you they're hard to get, but you can get them if you know where to look. And so I immediately called the guy and I said, listen, I can't buy, I mean, for me, I was like, I'm not going to buy those poles. And I'd already paid the guy to select them. I'd paid some deposit to start the process, but immediately I just put that on a pause. And I began to look around, and eventually I found a guy, and I found this guy, and he's going to actually be featured at at Fearless Summit next week. So I'll give you just a little heads up. This man who's invented a way to create plastic poles out of waste, recycle. And I managed to get those poles they were a little more expensive than what my cedar poles would have been, but I did it with a clear conscience. And I felt this is actually good for the environment. I'm saving the environment as I fence my land. By the way, this whole thing about cedar poles being traded, the government's fully aware of some of those trades. I mean, there are sections of the government that are involved in that illegal trade. And again, it's just part of the greed that's destroying the environment. Say no to shortcuts. If you know something has been procured, so understand where your things are being procured from, where your supply is coming from. If you're making a product, where is it coming from? Are you aware of what it is you're putting in it? So don't sell a product that you can't stand for. If you're selling cakes, do you know that the sugar you're putting in those cakes is good sugar? Are you aware about that, or you don't care if it has mercury in it? People should know. Me, I'm just here to make cakes. Are you aware of what's going into your product? Can you stand up and say, this is a product that is environmentally conscious and it's healthy for people as a result? So say no to shortcuts, whatever business that you are in, because shortcuts hurt others. They may not hurt you, but they hurt others. But number 3, reduce your waste. Another way to start is just reduce waste. Position yourself as an environmentally friendly business. This includes things like recycling paper. When you print stuff, reuse it. Print it on the other side. Don't just throw it away. Recycle your water. Don't just waste it. I'm learning to recycle the water that I'm using in the businesses that I'm in. Reduce your waste. Compost. Learn how to compost. There's something powerful called composting. You can compost all the food, much of the live food that you eat in your kitchen. Use LED bulbs to save power. Use a water dispenser. Don't use paper cups. And use mugs and glasses. I mean, there are little things that you can do that help you. Use shopping bags as opposed to using those disposable things that we throw away and then they choke the waterways. Manage your wealth well so that you don't leave litter behind. Be proud of a good environment, a clean environment around you. And so reduce waste is the third one. Then number 4, and I'm kind of rushing just because of time, beautify your environment. Beautify your environment. You know, it should be evident. And I believe Christians in the past knew this. When I watch movies like Lord of the Rings, and when you see how J.R. Tolkien represents the place where there's good versus the place where evil reigns. Christians knew in the past that good people looked after the environment and that it was beautiful because God is a God of beauty. You know that people should be able to come into your business, people should be able to come to your home, where you live, even that rented house, and see the evidence that there's a creator. See beauty. And say, my goodness. And I'm not talking about wasting money. I'm not talking about big upgrades where you go to places and buy things for your house. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about looking after nature around you so that it's a blessing. I remember when we bought Mavuno's campus, headquarters, which is where our Hill City campus meets. And it was 20 acres of just really dry, scrubby ground. I mean, nothing good could come out of that place is what people told me. But I remember we began a process maybe 6 years ago of just reforesting that place, of working the environment. And you know, it's amazing. It was such a hostile environment when we went there. There were dust storms and it was just, oh my gosh, such a craggy place. But now when I go, I mean, one of the things, and to God's glory, I must say, whenever people come in now, they say, what a beautiful environment. Oh my goodness, the trees, the flowers. Even I enjoy going there. It's fun just to be there. The neighbors love to come and work out there. Why? Because the environment is beautiful. And I believe that people should say, this is where Christians are. When there's a beautiful environment, understand there must be a Christian around. This is how it should be. And I believe that for you, wherever you're running your business, people should be able to walk around you, to be able to see just the beauty of the environment and say, there is a Christian in this place. Now, these are just a few thoughts on a few things you can do to start. I want to just conclude by saying Christians have often left the task of looking after the environment to others. We see it as the work of NGOs. We see it as the work of famous people like Dr. Wangari Maathai, the late. But that's tragic because we're the ones who best understand our mandate as stewards, as managers, created to manage our Father's planet. We were created to rule over it, to rule justly, to rule kindly over creation on His behalf. And when you look after something for your boss, you don't destroy it, you take good care of it. Our goal should always be able to leave the world a better place than we found it. Because our care of the environment is part of our worship. It's part of our worship. I believe that as Christians, we must have a sense of responsibility to the earth that exceeds those people around us because we know who we are and whose we are. Now, those are the first 3 P's, the essential marks of a kingdom business: purpose, people, planet. Next week, we're going to take a break from Church for Business People because we're going to be doing the Fearless Summit. I mentioned that earlier. And we're doing a special plenary next Wednesday, which is Business Day. We're going to be doing the future of work. This is going to be a fun plenary. It's going to be same time as Church for Business People. We're going to be talking about what will businesses and work look like in the new normal. And how should we be reskilling ourselves for the world post this COVID-19 crisis? What new skills will be needed as we enter this 4th industrial revolution to survive in it? And this mind-blowing conversation will be stewarded by a former permanent secretary for information and technology in this country, Dr. Bitange Demo, a man who is credited with massively transforming Kenya's ICT sector in huge ways. And then also my good friend Sam Gishuru, who's the founder of NILAB, and one of Kenya's leading business, which is one of Kenya's leading business incubators. So if you haven't registered for Fearless Summit, very simple, it's free. The beautiful thing is for the first time, Fearless Summit is free, but you actually have to get a pass for it to be able to participate. So go on to fearlesssummit.org and get your pass. And the summit is free for the first time in a long time, but you need to get that pass to attend. And then right after Fearless Summit, we'll come back for that last P. I know you're waiting for it. I can't wait for us to finish our 4th P, the distinctives, the things that must distinguish your business as a kingdom business. Now, I want to end in prayer for us. If you haven't joined our WhatsApp community yet, please, link up, connect below on the link. Don't get left behind. Become part of our community and let's get that content that will build us up as kingdom business people. So I want to pray for us, and I hope this has been a good session. Leave me an encouragement, leave me something on the line there, just to say you've enjoyed this, you've watched it, this is worth it, this is investing in you, it's building you up. Let me know something that will just encourage me as I keep doing this. I want to just pray for you as I conclude. And my Father, I just want to thank you for every business person who's listened to this. I thank you because Genesis 1:28 says, rule over the planet. God blessed them. He said, increase, multiply, be fruitful. And he said, rule over the planet. And I'm praying for my brothers and sisters. I pray for an awareness of who they are, of their rulership, and what that means, that they are managers over God's own business. And I pray that every business person represented listening to this, every professional person listening to me as I speak, that Lord Jesus, you would just be doing something in them. Just do a mind job on us. Help us to understand who we are and whose we are. And I pray that as a result of listening to this word, that there will be a true transformation that would come in. That Lord, our homes, our businesses would become places of beauty. That wherever we are, our environment would be changed. That Father God, where there's an environmental committee, where there's a team that is changing something in the environment, the Christians who are listening to this will be among those, will be the first ones leading, because they understand that this P is an important part of why they were created. And I pray that, Lord, every business represented here, Lord, people would walk into it and feel the presence of the Most High God, because these are your children. And so, Lord, we thank you and we honor you, and we can't wait. We can't wait for what's to come. I look forward to Fearless Summit next week. Pray that, Lord, even as we register for that, you'd give us such transformation. The whole week, it will be just a powerful week of transformation for us as kingdom entrepreneurs. And I just pray that, Lord, you'd continue to build us up to be the men and women you want us to be. For we ask these things in Jesus' mighty and matchless name. God's people say, amen. God bless you. See you next time.